Confident Speaking Podcast, where you can learn to speak English with natural rhythm, real confidence, and fluency.
Welcome to the Confident Speaking Podcast, where we help you master English through real-life situations that actually matter. I'm Julia, and I'm here with David.
Hi, everyone.
And today, we're diving into something that might seem basic, but is actually one of the most powerful skills you can develop. Before we dive into today's lesson, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support truly means everything to me and helps me create more content like this for you. Subscribing really helps me keep making these lessons that hopefully make your English journey a bit easier and more enjoyable.
You know, Julia, I'll never forget my first day at university in Canada. I walked into the classroom and the professor said, "Let's go around the room and introduce ourselves." My heart started racing, my palms got sweaty, and when it was my turn, I just said, "Hi, I'm David," and sat down. That was it, nothing else.
Oh, David, I can totally relate. I remember my first networking event in London. I spent 20 minutes in the bathroom practicing what I was going to say. But when I actually met people, I either talked too much or barely said anything at all. It's funny how something as simple as introducing yourself can feel so overwhelming, right?
Exactly. And the thing is, we introduce ourselves all the time, at work, at social events, even in casual conversations. But somehow, when we're doing it in our second language, it feels like we're performing on stage without a script.
That's such a perfect way to put it. And you know what I've learned? The secret isn't having the perfect introduction memorized. It's understanding that every introduction is actually a bridge, a way to connect with another human being. Today, we're going to explore how to build that bridge confidently and naturally.
We'll talk about the mindset shift that changes everything, practical phrases that work in any situation, and most importantly, how to make your introductions feel authentic rather than rehearsed. Because at the end of the day, people don't remember perfect grammar. They remember how you made them feel.
Whether you're starting a new job, traveling, or simply want to feel more confident in social situations, this episode will give you the tools to introduce yourself with genuine confidence. Let's dive in. David, let's start with something that might surprise our listeners. The reason introducing yourself feels so challenging isn't really about English at all. It's about vulnerability.
That's interesting. What do you mean by that?
Think about it. When you introduce yourself, you're essentially saying, "Here's who I am, and I hope you'll accept me." That's a vulnerable moment, regardless of what language you're speaking.
Oh, wow. I never thought of it that way. So it's not just about finding the right words. It's about being brave enough to put yourself out there.
Exactly. And here's the thing. When you understand that everyone feels a bit nervous during introductions, it actually becomes easier. The person you're meeting is probably just as concerned about making a good impression as you are.
That's actually really comforting. So we're all in the same boat, trying to figure out how to connect with each other.
Precisely. And once you realize that, you can focus on the real goal of an introduction, which isn't to be perfect, but to be genuine and to start building a connection.
Okay, so let's get practical. What's the best way to structure an introduction?
Great question. I like to use what I call the 3-part formula. It's simple but effective. Name, context, and connection.
Can you break that down for us?
Sure. First, you share your name, obviously. But here's where people often make it too complicated. You don't need a dramatic presentation. A simple, "Hi, I'm Julia," works perfectly.
What about the context part?
Context is where you briefly explain why you're there or what you do. For example, "I'm a teacher here at the school," or "I'm David's neighbor from apartment 3B. It gives the other person a frame of reference.
And the connection part.
That's where you create a bridge for further conversation. You might ask a question like, "How do you know Sarah?" or make a comment about the situation you're both in. Like, this is quite a turnout for the event, isn't it?
So it's not just about dumping information about yourself. It's about starting a two-way conversation.
Exactly. Let me give you a complete example. Hi, I'm Julia. I work with marketing at the company. How are you enjoying the conference so far?
That flows so naturally. It doesn't feel forced or rehearsed.
Now let's talk about some mistakes I see people make all the time. David, what do you think is the biggest mistake people make when introducing themselves?
From my own experience, I'd say giving too much information too quickly. Like launching into your entire life story in the first 30 seconds.
Yes, I call this the information dump. You meet someone and suddenly you're telling them about your job, your family, where you're from, your hobbies, your pet's name. It's overwhelming.
Right, and the other person is just standing there trying to process everything, probably feeling a bit trapped in the conversation.
Another big mistake is being too formal or too casual for the situation. If you're at a business networking event and you introduce yourself with, "Hey, what's up?" it might come across as unprofessional.
And on the flip side, if you're at a casual party and you say, "Good evening, I am David Thompson. Pleased to make your acquaintance," people might think you're a bit strange.
Exactly. Reading the room is crucial. Pay attention to how others are speaking and try to match that energy level.
What about the mistake of not listening to the other person's name? I'm guilty of this one.
Oh, that's such a good point. You're so focused on what you're going to say next that you completely miss their name. And then you're stuck in this awkward situation where you have to ask again.
Any tips for remembering names?
Try to repeat their name back immediately. "Nice to meet you, Sarah." Or associate it with something memorable. But honestly, if you do forget, it's better to ask again than to avoid using their name for the rest of the conversation.
Julia, I think it's important to talk about how introductions can vary between cultures. What works in one country might not work in another.
That's such an important point. In some cultures, it's common to share personal information quite quickly, like talking about your family or where you're from. In others, people prefer to keep things more professional and surface level at first.
Right. And there's also the whole question of physical contact. Some cultures include handshakes, hugs, or even cheek kisses as part of the introduction.
Exactly. And if you're not sure what's appropriate, it's always safe to follow the other person's lead. If they extend their hand for a handshake, go with it. If they seem to maintain more distance, respect that.
I think the key is being observant and adaptable. You can have your basic introduction ready, but be willing to adjust based on the situation.
And remember, as an English learner, people are generally very understanding. They appreciate the effort you're making to communicate in their language, and they're usually quite patient with cultural differences.
That's reassuring. So we don't need to stress about getting every cultural nuance perfect.
Not at all. Being genuine and respectful goes a long way, regardless of cultural background. David, let's talk about the practical side of building confidence. How can our listeners actually get better at this?
I think practice is key, but it needs to be the right kind of practice. You can't just rehearse in your head. You need to actually say the words out loud.
Absolutely. I recommend what I call mirror practice. Stand in front of a mirror and introduce yourself as if you're meeting someone for the first time. Pay attention to your body language, your tone, your facial expressions.
That's great advice. And I'd add that you should practice different versions for different situations. The way you introduce yourself at a job interview is different from how you do it at a neighbor's barbecue.
Right. Create a few different scripts for different contexts. But here's the important part. Don't memorize them word for word. You want to have a general structure and some key phrases, but it should still feel natural and spontaneous.
What about practicing with friends or family?
That's excellent practice. Ask a friend to role play different scenarios with you. Have them pretend to be a new colleague, a potential client, someone at a social event. The more you practice in different contexts, the more comfortable you'll become.
And don't forget about body language. Sometimes we focus so much on the words that we forget how we're presenting ourselves physically.
Good point. Stand up straight, make eye contact, smile genuinely. These nonverbal cues are just as important as the words you're saying.
Julia, I want to talk about something that's been on my mind. How do you make your introduction memorable without being weird or over the top?
That's a fantastic question. I think the secret is authentic storytelling. Instead of just listing facts about yourself, share something that gives people a glimpse into who you really are.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. Instead of saying, I'm a teacher, you might say, I'm a teacher and I absolutely love those moments when I see a concept finally click for a student. It's more engaging and gives people something to respond to.
That's so much more interesting than just stating your job title. It shows your personality and passion.
Exactly. Or instead of, I'm from Chicago, you might say, I'm from Chicago and I still haven't gotten used to how quiet it is here in the suburbs. It's relatable and often leads to interesting conversations.
But you have to be careful not to make it too long or too personal, right?
Absolutely. The key is to share something that's genuine but still appropriate for the context. You're giving people a small window into your world, not opening the entire door.
I like that metaphor. A small window, not the entire door.
And here's something interesting. When you share something authentic about yourself, it often encourages the other person to do the same. It creates a more meaningful connection right from the start. All right, let's take a moment to break down some useful vocabulary and expressions that came up in our conversation today.
Great idea. Let's start with some basic but important phrases for introductions.
First, let's talk about nice to meet you. This is probably the most common response when someone introduces themselves. It's polite and appropriate in almost any situation.
And you can vary it slightly. Pleased to meet you is a bit more formal, while great to meet you is more casual and enthusiastic.
Next, we have, how do you know? This is a fantastic conversation starter. How do you know Sarah? Or how do you know about this event? It helps you understand the context and gives the other person something easy to talk about.
Another useful expression is, I'm here with, as in, I'm here with my colleague from work, or I'm here with some friends from my neighborhood. It provides context without being too personal.
What brings you here is another great conversation starter. It's more interesting than what do you do and gives people flexibility in how they want to answer.
Let's talk about I work in versus I work as. I work in marketing refers to the field or industry, while I work as a marketing coordinator is more specific about your role.
Good distinction. Now, I'm originally from is useful when you want to share your background. I'm originally from Brazil, but I've been living in Canada for 5 years.
I'm involved in is a nice way to talk about activities or hobbies. I'm involved in local theater, or I'm involved in environmental activism.
We have a mutual friend is helpful when you're at parties or social events. I think we have a mutual friend. Do you know Alex from the gym?
I've heard so much about you is a warm way to greet someone you've heard about but never met. Just make sure it's true.
I'm looking forward to is great for professional settings. I'm looking forward to working with your team, or I'm looking forward to learning more about the project.
What line of work are you in is a polite way to ask someone's job. It's more conversational than what do you do?
I'm passionate about is a way to share your interests authentically. I'm passionate about sustainable living, or I'm passionate about helping small businesses grow.
Feel free to is a friendly way to extend an invitation. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Or feel free to join us for lunch sometime.
And finally, it's been great talking with you is a polite way to end a conversation. You can add, I hope our paths cross again soon to make it even warmer. Okay, let's dive into a sample conversation. We'll meet Emma, a graphic designer from Spain, is at a professional networking event in London. She meets James, a marketing manager from Scotland. Both are in their late 20s, and this is their first time meeting. Emma is slightly nervous about networking in English, while James is naturally outgoing but respectful of people from different backgrounds.
Hi there, I'm Emma. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Emma. I'm James. Nice to meet you too. I love your portfolio folder. Is that your own design work?
Thank you. Yes, I'm a graphic designer. I'm originally from Barcelona, but I've been living here in London for about 8 months now. What brings you to this event?
That's fascinating. I'm in marketing, and I'm always looking to connect with creative professionals. I work with a tech startup here in London. What's the most rewarding part of your design work?
I'm passionate about creating designs that actually solve problems, not just look pretty. Right now, I'm working on a project for a sustainable fashion brand. What about you? What's exciting in the marketing world?
I can totally relate to that problem-solving aspect. We're launching a new app next month, and I'm hoping to find creative ways to tell that story to users. You mentioned sustainable fashion. That's such an important area right now.
It really is. Let me think for a moment. Actually, there might be some interesting overlap between what you're doing and what I'm working on. I'm hoping to work with more brands that have social impact. Would you be interested in grabbing coffee sometime to discuss this further?
That would be brilliant. I'd love to hear more about your approach to sustainable design. Here's my card. I'm really glad we met today.
Me too. I'm still learning about networking in London, but conversations like this make it so much easier. Thanks for being so welcoming, James.
Of course. And your English is excellent, by the way. I look forward to our coffee chat.
As we wrap up today's episode, I want you to think about this. Every person you meet has a story, and every introduction is an opportunity to start discovering that story.
That's beautiful, Julia. And here's what I've realized from our conversation today. The goal isn't to be perfect when you introduce yourself. The goal is to be present and genuine.
Exactly. You know, there's a quote that says, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, but I think that puts too much pressure on us. What if we thought of it differently?
How so?
What if we thought of introductions not as make or break moments, but as the beginning of a conversation, the start of a potential friendship or a professional relationship?
That takes so much pressure off. Instead of trying to impress someone in 30 seconds, you're just trying to connect with them as a human being.
And here's the thing about confidence. It's not about having all the answers or never feeling nervous. Confidence is about being comfortable with who you are, even when you're stepping outside your comfort zone.
I love that. So when you introduce yourself, you're not performing for someone else's approval. You're simply sharing who you are and being open to learning about them.
Think about the last time someone introduced themselves to you in a way that made you feel comfortable and welcome. I bet it wasn't because they had the most polished presentation. It was because they were genuine and made you feel seen.
That's what we should all aim for, making others feel comfortable and welcome while being true to ourselves.
So as you go out into the world and meet new people, remember this. You have something unique to offer. Your perspective, your experiences, your story, these are gifts that you can share through a simple introduction.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the Confident Speaking Podcast. We hope this episode has given you some practical tools and a fresh perspective on introducing yourself in English.
If this episode helped you feel more confident about meeting new people, we'd love to hear from you. Hit that like button, share this episode with a friend who might benefit from it, and subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming episodes.
And here's a little challenge for you. This week, try to introduce yourself to at least one new person. It could be a neighbor, a colleague, someone at the coffee shop, anyone. Practice what we've talked about today.
Remember, every expert was once a beginner. Every confident speaker was once nervous about introductions. The difference is that they kept practicing and kept putting themselves out there.
Next week, we'll be exploring how to keep conversations going after that initial introduction. We'll talk about asking engaging questions, finding common ground, and navigating those awkward silences.
Until then, keep practicing, keep growing, and remember, you have everything you need to make meaningful connections. You just need to be brave enough to share who you are.
Take care, everyone, and we'll see you next time on the Confident Speaking Podcast.